We thank you for accepting our invitation to join this relevant panel.
John, and thank you to my fellow panelists and to the audience. I want to call out Ms. Carrie Powell, also who's with me here from the Task Force on Business and Stability Operations. She's also with the Office of Acquisition Technology and Logistics in the Department of Defense. So in addition to the work we do in the task force, she has oversight and a great deal of expertise in Department of Defense contracting policies. The Task Force on Business and Stability Operations started operations in Afghanistan in 2010. Our mission is to enhance security and stability through private sector growth and improve or accelerate the Afghan government's ability to generate revenue and then expend that revenue for security, particularly for the Afghan National Security Forces, but also for other government operations. We have new leadership within the task force. I'm included in that. Mr. Jim Bullion and I joined the task force formally this year. So we are at something of a strategic inflection point for the task force. We're 2 years into operations. We have new leadership, and we're looking at the next 2 years as we go through the security transition period and what the private sector can do and what we can do with the private sector. Our strategy has 4 pillars. First is with mining. I'm very pleased to hear the brief from the Ministry of Mines today. We provide technical and other support to the Ministry of Mines for their tenders, both in the mining and in the energy sector. We also have specific work in energy, working with USAID, the Overseas Private Investment Corporation, and others for power, gas power, particularly in the north. Microhydro, working with the Ministry for Rural Rehabilitation and Development to rehabilitate some microhydro projects and commercialize them so villages can trade electricity with each other. Our third pillar is intra-Afghan trade and investment that is looking for ways to facilitate Afghan-to-Afghan business and Afghan government to Afghan business relationships. Afghan first as a policy should be an Afghan policy. Afghan first has to be about the Afghans, not about what contracts you can get from a foreign government. Finally, our last pillar is on rebranding and connecting Afghan businesses back to traditional markets where Afghans had excelled in the past. For example, carpets and cashmere, raisins, some of the other dried fruit. What we want to do is take stories about Afghanistan off the front page, make them not about security, but put Afghanistan firmly in the business pages of the newspaper and make Afghanistan about investment and about a future that's about prosperity. When I talk with foreign or Afghan businesses, they never raise security as an issue. They consistently raise rule of law and the investment environment. So the comments we've heard from the government and from the Afghan Investment Support Agency, from Shafafia and from others, I think are extremely important for both internal Afghan investment and for foreign direct investment. Security is increasingly not in the forefront of international investors' minds, but the operating environment is. So ongoing, we have a near full-time or full-time presence for task force members in Kabul and in Herat. We also have an energy team operating pretty much full-time in Shirbagan and in Mazar-e-Sharif. The Ministry of Mines, I mentioned, we have that ongoing support directly with the government. We also have, out of Herat, a team supported by IBM that looks at Afghan small and medium enterprises, screens them as potential for future investment, and is starting to put together with other members of the U.S. government, private sector entities, and Afghans themselves, a concept for an investment fund. So this fund could invest in small and medium enterprises in Afghanistan. We have a small incubator project, also based out of Herat, that is focused on the information technology sector, and companies, some students directly out of Herat University that were specialists in information technology went through this incubator, developed their own business plans, and have become very competitive for Afghan government contracts, and I think very important some of these graduates have created software that's for use by other Afghan business people in Herat. And that's the kind of success we want to see. We've also had some support to American University of Afghanistan, including funding for the development of a Women's Economic Development Center. If you come by the table that I host in the afternoon, I probably gave you some materials on the American University of Afghanistan, and please do come see me this afternoon if you'd like any information on that. We also have projects, as I mentioned, in traditional Afghan products, including carpets, which we've redesigned this project entirely. We had supported development of cut and wash facilities in Mazar and in Herat. We're redesigning the project so it's not about infrastructure in Afghanistan, but it's about the matchmaking, redesigning, and getting Afghan businesses directly connected with buyers from anywhere in the world. Part of that is a redesign and updating the design that Afghan carpet weavers are currently using, but also supporting, probably in the near future, design competition to create a new iconic design for a traditional Afghan carpet. So that leads me to some of our future. As I mentioned, we're at a strategic inflection point, as is Afghanistan. As we've heard for the past day and a half, international donor requirements, U.S. government and other contracts are declining. I think this is an incredible opportunity for business in Afghanistan. If you look at some of the economic statistics that have been presented, the amount of donor money put into Afghanistan is a great investment. It has definitely improved the infrastructure, including the human infrastructure in Afghanistan. Over time, however, it squeezes out any ability for the private sector to grow. And if you continue to live off donor goods, then there's the question of why would anyone ever pay for your services? So the decline, I think, in the donor funding or the focusing of that donor funding to specific areas creates a lot of room for Afghan businesses to resolve Afghan problems. I was in Afghanistan for 2 years, and I've been involved in the different energy projects, particularly the Southeast Power System in Helmand and Kandahar for at least that long, if not longer. The more I look at the way government has approached that problem, the more I think if Kandahari business people just got together, they may have solved the power problem long before donors ever could. So the reduction in that donor space opens a lot of space for you Afghan businesses to keep apps in Afghanistan. Which takes me to my point for the future for us. It is really about keeping apps in Afghanistan. As you noted, there have been trillions of dollars put into Afghanistan, and a lot of it flows right back out. I'd very much like to see over the next 2 years, Afghans put Afghans first, and then all of your businesses that have profited and will continue to profit, you start to invest back in Afghanistan. You start to build your own vocational training programs. You start to look for what services Afghans will buy from you, instead of looking for contracts from foreigners. You start to look and anticipate, because you are the entrepreneurs of Afghanistan. And for the entrepreneur, it's anticipating that problem and solving it, and providing a really unique good or service at the best quality and the best price. You have that opportunity now, and part of my mission is to ensure that you're able to do so. So I think a couple things that have come up today, particularly, again, the mining and the energy sector, provide fantastic opportunity for construction and logistic companies. As mines start to open, mines need miners, miners need food, miners need clothes, miners need transportation, miners need housing. And that's just one area. Again, anticipating, looking at where the Asian Development Bank, USAID, and other big energy projects are coming, to ask yourself, when there is power in Mazar, what will Mazaris want to buy? When there's power in Kandahar, what will Kandaharis want to buy from Mazar? What will Kandaharis want to sell to Kabul, not to Quetta? And how can Afghans start to, again, keep those apps in Afghanistan? The resource corridors presents another great opportunity. As I mentioned, miners need food, water supply, they need your logistics services, they need your transportation services, but so do your farmers. I think still 85% of Afghan's economy is agricultural. And again, I think all of you have told me that all of Afghanistan's great melons, pomegranates, peaches go to Pakistan and then you buy them again in your Afghan market. So, stop it. In this room, you've got fantastic transportation services, fantastic storage services, fantastic opportunities to solve problems for other Afghans, and to sell and keep those Afghan products and that value in Afghanistan wherever appropriate. So the resource corridors, I think, provide great opportunity opening up for Afghan businesses. For the task force, we'll start to look more and more at what can be done in the east, south, southwest. As these areas, while still in conflict, they certainly have not stopped commerce. I think Jalalabad, Kandahar, and even some parts of Zabul show a thriving marketplace and thriving trade. So we'll start to look more and more at what can we do in these areas that, while still in conflict, have a great deal of commerce happening. What commercial opportunities are there? How do we capture those? And again, capture that value in Afghanistan. And finally, as I mentioned, and I think as my fellow panelists and others have noted, security will continue to improve in Afghanistan. So along with that, the rule of law needs to catch up. The ability to create and protect contracts needs to catch up with that physical security. And that's an area where, again, as I think Captain Foster mentioned, the private sector is extraordinarily powerful. You have to create that demand from your government, from your partners, to protect your industries, protect your contracts, protect your agreements. And a lot of that, again, comes from your business practices with each other. I hear every once in a while from foreigners who will tell me that Afghans don't want to work with Afghans. And the perception is, if Afghans don't want to work with Afghans, why would I? These contract agreements and investing in each other is going to be essential to show the world that Afghanistan is open for business, that Afghans need to stay in Afghanistan, and that Afghans do want to work with each other, and they can successfully work with each other, and that creates the potential and the invitation to success for investment in Afghanistan. So I very much look forward to working with you all and seeing you this afternoon if you come by the table 16 to secure your eye. I think we'll also be visiting some of our colleagues at different tables to learn more about the different projects and opportunities that are there. So thank you very much to CWI for the chance, and thank you all for listening.